Satisfactory blueprints just got a pretty massive buff, and today I want to go over how to use the new features with the new blueprints you'll be building or your existing ones to make them better, more functional, and help you build even faster. Now, I've made a few blueprint videos before, but this one is just going to build right on top of the previous information. But I have a pretty great blueprint to start with and show you an example of how to update your blueprints and the best way to go around the new 1.1 update. Okay, so right here I've grabbed out a blueprint that we've already made in our 1.0 save, and this is for our bottled water facility. We're going to use this as an example. Now I have three different versions here for three different points I want to make, but the first one is that this is where we were coming from, and if we go into blueprint mode here, we can build these together and they will line up perfectly like so, foundations and everything, which is exactly what we want. But we can also go into blueprint auto connect, and you can either press or hold R to get your different options being defaults, auto connect, blueprint, and blueprint auto connect, which blueprint auto connect is the one we're going to be talking about today. This one really makes it powerful. And if we do that, we can see it still connects via blueprint connection, but there's no auto connect features because none of these points for them to connect to are close enough to the edge. And so normally we'd build this out, we'd go and add our logistic lines afterwards and connect them together, but we can update our blueprints to do something, well, better. And that's where this third one comes in. But before we get to that, I just want to show you what not to do. So I've updated the blueprint to have the belts go right to the edge, and this actually does work, but it doesn't work exactly how you might want it to. You see, when we update our blueprints, if we bring the belt all the way to the end, it does a couple weird things. Now this still does work, but it adds a lot of extra steps that you probably just want to avoid. If we go into blueprint auto connect, which is again that feature we're looking at, we can see we get this little symbol here, and that means these are connected right here. And this should appear anywhere there's a valid connection. So if we have belts up here or pipe or something else, it will connect. But now our blueprints actually don't line up. The foundations are misaligned. So if we wanted to connect these, we'd have to click once to merge the connections basically. So we click once, and now we can go and build the blueprint. You can see we have this belt over here that's going and will build. But if we stay in blueprint mode and then we press H to lock it in place, and then we go to nudge, you see we go one closer, it goes red. But we go one more closer and it lines up perfectly on the end. Now, again, this does work, but this is quite inefficient if you're looking to put down multiple blueprints in a line, and there's a very easy way to avoid this. So we can still build this, but we have to do that each time. But it is still connected right here, and that's all good. And that's where this third one comes in. And the only thing we're doing is we're just taking the last snapping point for the belt and recessing it in by 1 meter or one like tick of snapping points. You can see right here, this would be the edge of the blueprint. We just bring it back by 1. Very, very simple. Now, when we go and grab this guy and we line him up here, we can press H here just so I can look over here, and you can see these guys are automatically connecting. We have the signal up here, we have the signal up here. The only thing that doesn't connect automatically, it would seem, is power lines, which is okay. I'll take what I can get. Just by recessing your logistic lines by 1, you'll be able to snap these just like so. And then we can just go down the line, and we just have to double click the first one again to auto connect, and then the second one to actually place the blueprints. But we can just go down in blueprint auto connect, and all of these belts will be built. And in just 6 clicks, we've added a blueprint line that has logistic lines already connected, and the only thing I would have to go through and do is connect power lines. That seems pretty damn efficient to me. I don't know about you. And then you get your nice blueprints, and you can really start building your factories pretty fast. I know for a fact I'll be using this quite a lot when building our bottled water facility, because we're going to be placing a good amount of these blueprints, and each floor of that building will do about 15,000 packaged water. We're going to need a lot of these. And again, this is a new feature that really you should be going back and updating a lot of blueprints you plan to keep using. If you have a set of constructors or assemblers or any production building that you like to spam out for a large amount of production, whether it's a nice blueprint like this or it's just a bunch of functional machines, they both really do the same thing. This is going to speed up all of that building and make your factories, well, a lot easier to build. This video really is mostly about how we're looking at our previous blueprints we have made and how we are looking to build our future blueprints with this feature in mind. Now, this really is only beneficial on blueprints that you're going to be putting, well, either in a big line or connecting together in some sort of way. But I think most people are doing some level of assembly line, and I really see this feature just expediting the process of building like crazy. And that brings us to part 2 of this video, talking about rail lines, because there's some unique stuff you can do with rails with how they snap together. So I have quickly whipped up a few different blueprints here to emulate a simple highway design you guys might use. And I want to go over the different snapping methods here with the first one. So this specific blueprint is meant to be something that you put into Blueprint AutoConnect like so. And if we just hold it in place with H, we can look at the rails. They don't actually line up, and that's because they're too close. There's only, I think, one foundation of space between these snapping points, and rails need at least 6 meters or a foundation and a half. So we can't place this here, but this blueprint specifically is designed to be connected and then kind of placed wherever you want. Now, it doesn't have great snapping points here with the grid here, but if we go on the back side and do the same thing where we connect this guy, we can place it like, let's say, down here. And by manually placing this off grid, we can have this stuff still curve and connect. And this is the intention of this specific blueprint. Again, this is just a quick design I whipped up, but you could do a lot with just having a support and then just going off grid or following a valley, let's say through the canyon over there, anything. It really makes it easy to connect these things. But if we wanted to use this in a straight line, we would have to connect it with the blueprint by clicking, and then it goes red. We can see it just doesn't want to place. That's because those connections are not great. So we can either move this over a few ticks to where there's enough space for this rail to be built, and then we'd be able to build it, but we'd have this big gap here. We could also recess this in, but then we have all the clipping and everything like that. And so it's not really the best option. That's why I've made another one that is a straight piece. Now, I've made 2 of these, and they both basically do the same thing. It's just how you really want to go about it. So this one, if we grab into blueprint mode, we can see that if I connect them and then hold it in place, we're doing almost the same thing we had over here. It's just a little longer, and this is, again, meant to be in a straight line, and our rail has enough space, being 2 foundations here, to be able to be built. And so we could just spam this down in a line if we wanted to, like so, and they would all connect and everything would be awesome. And with this blueprint as well, we could do the same thing where we could actually just move it down a line if we wish. And we'd have that gap of no supports right here, no foundations or anything like that, but it would still connect, and we can do the same thing there. But there is another way of doing this with the rails. If you build it right, we can actually have the rails go all the way to the end, but our hypertube can't go to the end. So if we grab this blueprint and put it again in blueprint connect mode, and we look at it, our rails will line up because they're both at the very end and there's no space in between them. They either have to be perfectly lined up, or they have to have at least 6 meters of space in between for a secondary piece of rail to be built to connect the 2 pieces. And this is where the hypertube comes in here, where we can do the same thing where we can build it just like the belts and just recess it by 1 from the edge of the blueprint. That way it has a couple meters of space for another piece to be built. Same thing as the rails here. Now these both basically do the same thing. It's just a couple different ways of snapping the rails, and we can just go down in a line and snap these together, and then that rail will be connected and the hypertube as well. But I really want to highlight that the rails are a little bit different. Whereas all of the other snapping connections like the hypertube and the belts and all that stuff, you want to recess by 1. With the rails, you have to recess by either quite a lot or put it all the way up into the edge and make sure your blueprints line up, because they need a 6 meter space, whereas most of the other stuff only needs like 2 meters. And that's a pretty big difference when you're lining up multiple connections on a blueprint. You have 2, 3, 4 different rails in a blueprint, like let's say our main save highway has 4 different rails. If we were to add in hypertubes as well, and maybe some logistic connections like belts and all that stuff, which you can totally do into your highways now really easily, and just have a bus line ready to inject materials into those lines, you have to keep all those connections in the back of your head when building the blueprint and making sure they all line up. Because you could get something like this, where your hypertube lines up, but then there's not enough space for your rail. Or if you want to make them line up, then there's overlapping like this right here and down here, but then everything lines up. Again, this is just a really quick example, but it is definitely something to note. Recently on stream, I have taken this blueprint that I threw together, and we actually ended up making it quite a bit better and using it in a new creative save that we're doing some building on. It still has a hypertube connection and a couple rail lines, but it is designed to be used in the new blueprint connection mode, with a few different options for supports, or a floating kind of highway bit that can be connected to a wall, let's say, or the side of a building. It's pretty darn cool, and I'm very excited to keep using it throughout that creative save. We might even throw it on the 1.0 save, who knows. But again, if you guys want any access to any blueprints we make, they are all on Patreon. And at the end of the month, I will be uploading both the creative save and the 1.0 save. I'm not sure if anything has changed on the 1.0 save since the last upload, just due to 1.1 being out, and it's still being a little bit buggy on the main save. But I just wanted to update and let you guys know that they both will be uploaded at the end of every month, because we'll probably continue to build on both throughout the months coming. And just a quick reminder, we do stream on both YouTube and Twitch, and the days have changed to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So if you guys want to hang out while we build and design all this stuff on stream, you can watch on whichever platform you prefer. But I do think that's going to do it for this video. I do want to keep this relatively short and not super long. Make sure to join the Discord if you want to know when we go live and just hang out, as I do hang out in voice chat as much as I can throughout the week. But hopefully you have a good rest of your morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you. And until the next time, peace.
I'm slick with words, tongue sharp, you left in thirds. You pitching verbs, I knock it out, I'm flipping birds. While smoking herbs, I'm blocking out what often hurts. I'm moving herds, it's me, my family, money merge.